Coming to you from a portable microphone, this is Don't Get Me Started. This is a conversation about advertising. And here is your host, freelance creative director and creative circus department head, Dan Balser.
Yes, welcome back to another episode of the podcast. We are back in the library with Anders Granberg, as you know, and Erika Liden. And this should be very interesting. This is going to be different. These are two alumni, which I think this may be, probably not, but it may be the first alumni that I didn't know until they came back to visit. So the first thing we're going to ask them in a second is what's it like to be back. So I'm giving you guys a hint. I want to talk about that. But as you know from the description, they're both from Sweden. They were in Stockholm for a long time, and they just moved 9 hours north of Stockholm. I can't even imagine what could be north of Stockholm, Sweden, other than I just envision white and then super green in the summertime. That's just kind of what I envision. We're going to ask them about that. Erika is a photographer who has worked in, I'm going to let her tell you exactly what she's worked in, but a lot of just absolutely beautiful, and it's almost, I could be biased, but I feel like it's just an elegant balance, composition, Scandinavian design photography, a lot of editorial work, really, really, really beautiful stuff. Anders is an art director who has also, I think, would tell you, and I haven't asked him this, would tell you that he also identifies very much as an artist who makes statements with his work. So let's find out really what they think of themselves. Welcome back to the Creative Circus. What's it like to be back to the school?
Absolutely fantastic.
Yeah?
It feels great. We haven't.
Is it weird?
It is weird. It's the second time back in the States since graduation 15 years ago.
15 years ago.
And this is the first time back in Atlanta. So you remember a lot of the street names and the names of areas and things, but you don't really remember where they are and where they go. But
wow.
The circus is the same but different.
How is it the same? Same sort of rundown space.
Same nice people.
Yeah.
I feel there's a mentality here that is so nice. It's everybody's so nice.
Well, they're nice to you. No, I'm kidding. I'm just kidding. Well, I think that comes from Norm, right? So Norm Gray, I think, kind of taught us all to care about human beings.
Yes.
So I think that's
important for the school culture.
Yeah. So let's talk about Anders. Let's start a little bit with when you got out of school, let's run through a little bit of the resume. So when you got out, you were at Palladium Film, okay? Then you were art director. What is these two where you say you were art director? Were you working directly for clients for 4 years? Or were these...
There were clients I worked with during that time.
Okay. So from 1998 to 2003, it's a pretty impressive list of clients. And then art director at Ruth,
yes.
Stockholm? That's an agency?
Yeah.
Okay.
Small independent one.
Interesting. For a long time.
Yeah.
So that was on Lotto. You're working on a lot of... What are some of these brands that people like?
Well, a lot of my time was occupied with Volkswagen commercial vehicles.
Oh, okay.
And a lot of shopping malls.
So was that retail work? Or
yeah.
Okay. So retail meaning where they're like sales and those kind of things, or events, or was it mostly
designing and branding? Yeah.
Okay.
And the Swedish lottery took a lot of my time.
Did you enjoy working on that?
Well, both. Both, actually. I did it for such a long time. I worked on them for maybe 7 years.
Wow.
I think. Over that period of time, there were good times and there were times where I rather would have been doing something else.
Right. So I'm curious about this, and this wasn't part of my questions, but when you're working on the same brand for that long, do you find yourself circling back to ideas that you've already had?
Yes.
How do you stay fresh on an account for that long? Like what if someone ends up in a situation, because I worked on Fujifilm for 3.5 years, and every year we got the same brief.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And how does it?
I know what you mean. And this was the brief was many times you can win a lot of money,
right.
Year in and year out. But I think a part of the process was they were losing. People didn't care about the lottery at all. It was dying, totally dying. They had none potential players, and young people thought it was an old man's game, and so there was a lot of The redesign, reposition, recreation of the game function to make it more like a cannonball.
Cool.
So I did a lot of work that wasn't just the campaigns for.
Right, that's interesting.
So that took a lot of my time too.
Do you think that's a uniquely European or Swedish or Ruth agency situation where you're tasked with doing more for the client than just their communication? Did you find that happened a lot?
That's been my work life since I started, I think.
Interesting.
It has to do with, I think, the size of the agencies in Sweden, and probably Scandinavia. And I think organizations are sort of, the setup is slightly different. There's not as much hierarchy, and you work straight with the clients, and I think that sort of affects how you work.
That's really interesting. So it's one of those situations where they start to see you very quickly as a partner that can solve all kinds of different problems for them.
In the good cases, yeah.
Yeah, it's great.
So you want to be a team with them. I don't want to have them as clients in that way. I mean, they are my clients and they pay my bills, but I'd rather be in a collaborative team with my...
Did you ever feel that you work... Did you ever, when I say feel, I mean almost dream or internalize or wake up feeling like you work for that company versus an agency? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. Well, it was like that sometimes. I mean, the lottery and Volkswagen and some other clients that I worked with for a long time were my only client for certain periods of time. And at that time, I might as well have been sort of their in-house agency or been on their team,
right,
with their marketing department. But
did you like that?
Yeah, I did, because then I start to understand their business so much better. Right. I believe I do a better job than just getting third-hand information handed to me.
That's a great point. I also feel like you have ownership over it, and you kind of are solving real problems rather than someone identifying what they feel like might be the problem, and then you're coming up with the best solution for it. It's a little bit more you're part of that process, right?
Yeah.
That's really cool.
It gives me a better understanding for their business, which is important for me to do a good job.
Yeah, really cool. So now, for the last, year or so, Humbly, that's your agency?
No, I'm freelancing.
Okay.
So I've been there since we moved to this new city.
How do you like the freelance life? And that's a question for both of you, because as a photographer, it's sort of like, how do you like life? So how do you like the freelance life?
Well, a part of this move was to create a situation where we didn't have to work as much, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Because I want to do my art more. I want to afford to not make money, you know?
Absolutely understand that.
But I would say jobs in that small town has been way over my expectations. Very professional, very fun. So I work a few days a week, and then I work on my personal projects.
All right, Anders, question. When did you realize what you just said? When did you realize that you would rather be able to open some space in your life to be an artist? How long ago did that come to you?
I think before I came to the circus. That's been my goal in life. That's been a very simply wired person. I always wanted to do that forever, but the kind of work I do it's nothing you make money from, and this job is really fun and stimulating, and I haven't gotten tired of doing advertising at all. It's not like I've felt I've sort of cracked the code. Now I know how to come up with a great idea, next. But
it's a means to an end. It's a way for you to allow yourself to do the art, right?
Yeah.
It's great.
But, we're midlife something. It's time to...
No, I know. I'm familiar with that. Yeah. So, Erika, talk a little bit about just being having such a successful freelance career. You talked a little bit about it in the forum, but I think for the benefit of the listeners, talk a little bit about what it takes to really build a career like you've had, because the variety of the work and the beauty of the work is obvious. But looking back at it, it looks like it was easy to get there. So talk a little bit about building a career as a freelance photographer.
Well, I'd say it's all about the network, the other people that you work with. You need to build a good network, because without a network, you're just you just get a chance to do one job and perhaps another job, but you need to have some consistency, and that's if you get good connections and good collaborations, you get the consistency of job and
Did you hustle like that? Were you working on those kind of relationships even when you got out of school, or is that something that you realized had to happen? Like, how were you aware of that early on, or did it feel difficult?
Well, no, I think it came like a reality shock when I got back to Stockholm, just realizing I don't know anybody here. Like I knew a few people, and I really grabbed onto them, and like it started from there, like trying to get more contacts and stuff, because it's you're nothing if you don't know people. If you don't know the right people or the people that are good working with, you have to know those people. So I worked really hard on building a network, meeting up with stylists and art directors and designers and magazines and.
Yeah, and you showed some work that you said that the work you were getting tended to just, for no real reason, be interiors or still lifes, and then that kind of became how your career kind of went. Would you say that how much of the opportunities, how much do you think your opportunities crafted your path? How much were you letting that happen, or how much of it were you actively guiding the kind of work that you wanted to do? Does the question make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense, and I think it's a lot about what kind of jobs you're getting. Because if you do a job and people like it, you're
going to get a similar job.
Yeah, you're going to get similar, and that's what happened to me. I my best connections were in food, still life, and interiors. I got to meet this really good stylist, and we were working on interior shots, and they turned out really nice, and we had a good workflow. So we got to do a lot of jobs together, and people were happy with what we did, and so one job led to another, and usually it's kind of hard to like have one job from like a still life job leading to a fashion job. It's not really the same. So
Right.
It was more it narrowed it down to.
So did you ever? Okay, this may be my own thing because I'm neurotic and maybe a little crazy, but like, did you ever feel like? And I know that there are a lot of creatives who this will happen to, where they feel pigeonholed, or they feel like, well, I really would rather be doing this thing, or I should be doing this thing. Did you ever have these moments where it's like, you know what, this is what the jobs are, but that's not what I want to be doing? Or did you kind of embrace that and realize that was something good for you? Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I did. I realized that fashion isn't really my thing. That I thought it was my thing when I went to the circus.
Right.
I did a lot of food and fashion when I went to the circus, and then I realized, because I tried to do some fashion in Stockholm, but I didn't really get any good connections with any good contacts, and I struggled some. But then I just realized I don't think this is my thing really, because I didn't have as much fun shooting fashion when I did.
No. I would think that looking at your work, you have a mathematical, graphic design thinking mind. And the work feels intentional. And sometimes fashion is more reactive or something, right?
Yeah.
And it would make sense to me that to succeed at what you're doing, they feel like two different skill sets to me a little bit. Yeah. I'm not a photographer, but just looking at the work, I've known photographers that are great fashion photographers, are more reactive. They couldn't design the kind of space that you're shooting, the kind of work that you have, the way that the elements work together graphically. It's just that's a talent in itself.
I think the fashion industry is also a very special industry. You have to.
How is that? You have to know the right people. Or
yeah,
something.
And you have to breathe it, kind of. You can't just turn it off and on. And you know, with having kids and family, it's too intense.
Right. That makes sense. So we talked, because this goes back to what you were presenting about finding your style. And the reason why I'm talking about this maybe longer than I should is I think that you make a really, really good point that I think is super important for young people to think about, is that you may know what you want to do, and you may actually be wrong about it.
Yeah.
Because it happened to me in my career. I ended up in my second job working for actually coincidentally, a Swedish agency, business to business, and it was if someone had told me coming out of school that you're going to go work in business to business, it would have been the equivalent of telling someone now that they're going to work in something bad. I don't want to say anything bad. Yeah. Some horrible category. And I realized that there's so much opportunity in that to invent, because the categories did not have great creative work, that it allowed me a place that I could actually write great copy that I wasn't getting to write working on Hershey's or whatever brand I was working on. So staying open-minded and flexible and sort of ready to make the best of the thing that's in front of you at the moment, I think is a really valuable skill.
Yeah.
Do you feel like your work is Swedish? Do you feel like it's Scandinavian? Do you feel like it has a style outside of your own style?
That's actually really funny, because when I went to the circus and showed my book to people and instructors and people in the business, and everybody said you have such a Scandinavian style. And when I came back to Stockholm and showed my book, they're like, it's different. It's not Scandinavian. It's colorful, because it was in Scandinavia at the time when I got back. It was just very very black and white especially, and it was maybe a little touch of gray in there sometimes. But and I had, which is really both black and white. It's not a third color. No, and just so I don't know. I think I have a little bit of both, and I think it's probably because I've been raised in Sweden from the beginning, and then I went to art school first in San Francisco, and then here. So I think I have a little bit of both, and I'm like mixing it. That's cool. That's really cool. It's sort of like if I go to New York, people think I have a Southern accent, and then here in Atlanta, they think I have a New York accent, because I have both, probably somewhere down in there. Okay, let's talk, I guess, with both of you. Anders, you talked a little bit about working client side, and obviously as a photographer, everything you do is collaborative, right? So what makes the best collaborations, whether you're working with an editorial editor, whether you're working with an art director, designer, what makes those relationships work well? And if you were working on a project with an art director or a designer, what expectations do you have from them? What do you want from them to make the job go well? Well, I answer the first question. What makes a good relationship? I think it's really important that you team up, that you're working as a team. So when I work with a stylist, like a prop stylist or a set stylist, it's really important that we have a good workflow, and that we kind of see us. We're working together to get the perfect image, not like he or she want their thing and I want to do my thing. It's really important. Has that happened? Yeah. It's really frustrating. Yeah, it is. And can I say something about that for just as a teacher? I have to say this in class now, because I have this realization. A lot of that's been happening with students in school the last few years, where I'll hear things like an art director saying, I didn't get the stuff from my writer. I'm still waiting on things from the writer. And the writer saying, I never got the layouts, or waiting for whatever. They throw each other under the bus right away. And I think that it's because I feel like they went to school and college and worked on group projects. In a group project, you'll have 4 or 5 people on a project, and they'll say, okay, here's all the stuff that needs to be done. You handle doing the charts. You handle the introduction and the ending. You handle like the pictures that we're going to slip into all of these things. That's not really collaboration at all.
No, you have to co-own the project. You have
to co-own the project, the entire project.
Yeah, I mean, I can't just not care about the writing since I have an art director's background. I mean, co-owning the whole thing, because then you're both responsible. You can't throw another person under the bus, because it's also your project.
It's yours. Yeah, right. And you said exactly what I say. You said it almost verbatim. I say it's not me against you. It's us against this horrible blank page that is the enemy to both of us. Yeah, we have to beat this thing together. And it's just the essence of collaboration that I think is a little bit lost on some younger people who are used to sort of having their job or having their role in a group or having their thing. I don't know if that's a generational thing or if it's just a part of the learning curve, maybe, for learning to be a creative, to collaborate. So that's critical.
But I think that's really important when you do good jobs, when you have that kind of relationship with the client as well. Because that's what I've done my best job, when you're almost like at presentation, for example. You don't do the putting on a show kind of thing. You sit down and you talk, okay, this is what you asked for, and this is how we reason about this thing, and then you talk it through. And of course you have your recommendation of how to solve this problem, but instead of, I know you've been working with clients that want sort of a show. They're paying for you to
sell them.
Do your little dance, sort of, like a circus pony to run around and do your thing. But it's like they're not buying the right thing.
I used that phrase "dog and pony show" the other day.
Okay.
And my daughter said, "They brought in dogs and horses?" And she's like a high school junior, but I had to say, no, it's a figure of speech. It's a big thing. So what makes the good partnerships for a photographer? What makes the best kind of collaborations with editors or art directors? What do you expect? What makes it good? What makes the best process for you, for your process?
I've had a lot of art directors that I've worked with that have, they come to me. They've seen something like in my image that they and they kind of want something, and so we're something that, I mean, they want something that they think they may not always have a clear view of what they want, but they want something that I'm doing. So we're kind of, they invited me in the process, which I think it's really a fun way of working. So it's not just, this is exactly what we want. That could be good too if it's really clear sketches and mood boards, but if not, if they're not in the and they invite me in, it's I usually do some it's really creative. I think great. I do some.
I think that's really great. I wonder how many people do that early. Bring in those sort of resources early in the process. It can only be a good thing, right?
I think it's something you talk about a lot of times, but it doesn't happen as much.
Right, because usually you have to solve something quickly and then find someone to help you execute it. That's really good. So talk a little bit about work-life balance. Have you been able to find that? This is clearly a decision that you had to be able to not be consumed by work. Is that right?
Well, before kids, it was different. And I think still, working in this industry, you have short deadlines and some periods of time when you work, it's very intense and you work late, and it helps that we both know how this business works and have an understanding for that.
Yeah, definitely.
So I think that's been helpful throughout the years.
Yeah, because it's like you didn't decide to do this. This was decided for you. I'm not choosing choosing to stay at work all night. That's not my choice, obviously. But it can look like that to someone who doesn't understand it. So far in your career, Anders, what do you think? What personal trait of yours? What do you think it is about you so far that has been most valuable for your career?
I would say my ability to collaborate. I like that. I like figuring out what makes other people tick and work.
Okay, interesting.
That sort of inspires me when I figure out people.
That's
interesting. And that's maybe a side of me that's curious about other people.
That's the artist. That's why
maybe
because artists are observers, right? Artists are commentators.
Yeah. So that's a good point, and I think people, since I'm interested in them, they sort of trust me, So
that's really cool.
So I think finding good team workers. So even in my artist work, I teamwork with people. It's not just always me and my vision and I want to do.
That's cool. So it's curiosity and empathy in a way as well.
Yeah.
That's really, really interesting. Love it. What about you, Erika?
I'd say I'm like a perfectionist, and for the images I do, I think that's what's required, and the people that I work with, they trust that they're getting it from, and they do get it from me. So I think that's kind of what they can always trust that I deliver.
Do you like most of your work?
Oh, that's a hard one.
Is it hard to look? Easier way to put it: is it hard to look at some pieces? Do you look at some and you're like, oh?
Yeah, sometimes. But I don't show that.
No,
I try to like put them behind me as soon as possible. But there's some work, some work I really like, and some work I'm not as.
Right, that's good. That's cool. Yeah. So another question that I'd like to ask is like, what if you could go back in time to 2001, right, from when you graduated the circus? If
yes.
you could whisper something in young Erika's ear at graduation day, what would you say to yourself, knowing what you know now? What would you whisper to yourself?
Try to ease up a bit. I know I'm a bit too much perfectionist sometimes. I think remember to have fun is one thing that I would like.
Well, have there been times when you think back on projects where you know that you pushed past the point you needed to push? In other words, you had this moment when it probably would have been fine, and you kept pushing it, and it didn't help. Did that happen?
Oh yeah,
that's Erika's way of working. I would say.
Yeah.
So it's learning to identify that. There's an economic term for it. It's the point of diminishing returns.
Yeah.
When you get to that point, the hard work doesn't correlate to better results. That's a tough skill to learn. That's a hard one, especially as
that goes against your instincts too. So like you couldn't just leave unless you really. I did my best.
Right.
You know?
Okay.
So I guess it goes both ways.
Yeah.
But I would really say that say that to myself if I feel like, because it's.
That makes sense. And Anders, what about that graduation day? What would you go back and whisper in young Anders' ear?
I think one of my topics for today is the remember to have fun part.
Yeah, that's great.
I didn't think like that from the beginning. I just, I wonder what my next assignment is going to be and what the next brief is going to be. And
so you mean have fun? What you said, for the sake of the people listening that didn't hear you, was you get to work in the morning. You get to work, get your cup of coffee, sit down on your computer. You want to be excited about your day, right? You don't want to be dreading your day. So have fun. If you're not having fun at this job, you should change something, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And you kind of suffered? Do you feel like you suffered a little bit? Or you were too strict?
I should have maybe jumped around more and tried more employers earlier on.
What was the benefit of staying at one place for as long as you did? What was the good side of that? 12 and a half years.
Yeah. Good.
Did you grow?
Yeah, I mean, there were many. Otherwise, I wouldn't have stayed.
Right.
And also the company itself changed so much during that time. Yeah. So it wasn't really
the same job,
the same place as I started. People come and go, and
I'm pushing you on that a little bit because I feel like people say that a lot. I feel like people say, "Oh, I should have moved jobs because things would have been somehow." You imagine that they would have been better, right? I did that, and it wasn't. So, I mean, just as many cases as sometimes people don't realize the value of what they have, and they feel like they should somehow change a thing. I don't know. It doesn't make sense what I'm saying coming off of what we just said about not being happy. If you're not happy at your job, you got to change something. Yeah,
right. But also, it was a period in our life when we had kids. Mm-hmm. And it was a good place to work with it. Very generous. I was taking parental leave for a long time. And
you guys, the Swedes have it figured out, right?
Well, it's different, at least. I know that. But, picking kids up from daycare, and it was a very understanding place. Many people in my own situation. So it was good for personal life. It worked really well. I mean...
How did that work practically? So when you had young kids, not babies, did you have to, when you left to pick them up at daycare or school, did you go back online and go back to work in the evening, or were things just kind of turned down a little bit? The intensity turned down overall?
It varied.
Yeah.
I can't say it was one way.
Right.
Otherwise, the last place when we moved now, the work climate is very different. When you leave the office, you leave the office.
Oh, that's great.
You really leave the office.
Well,
you can't expect anybody to answer an email after office hours.
That's so. You guys have it figured out. So I had a Swedish partner for 3 years in New York.
Yeah.
And very hardworking, very talented art director. Every day, he would leave the office. We worked in the West Village in New York City. He would go down to the West Village and he would sit at a table and order a meal, have a couple glasses of wine, 2 hours, come back to the office every day. In 3 years, one time in 3 years, I saw him eating a sandwich at his desk. He looked at the Americans like, you guys are idiots. You guys are eating at your desks. It's pathetic. It's sad. And he would go and he would come back and he would work. He'd stay there till 8, 9 o'clock, whatever it took. It wasn't like he was messing around. He just knew how to balance that, and he wasn't reachable. When he's at lunch, you're not going to reach Eric's at lunch means Eric's at lunch. Yeah. So that's pretty cool. Thank you guys so much for doing this. You were going to say something. You were inhaling a thought about the long lunch. Yeah. You need to survive. Yeah, I think I just got caught on that one. All right, so listeners, check this out. I know that I've already posted these links on the Facebook page, which is facebook.com/DGMS podcast. Make sure you go there. If you haven't gone there, you can type into your computer ericaliden.com, and you can find Anders and Anders' work at diagram.se. Diagram.se. Do you have anything about the Evian project online?
It's on there.
Okay, check out the Evian project. I'll be sharing that also. Probably by the time you hear this, it's already been shared on the Facebook page. You can reach me as always at danspodcast@mac.com. Please do leave a review and a rating on the iTunes store. I would appreciate that very much. And guys, great meeting you.
Thanks. Great meeting you too.
Thank you.
And being back to the circus. Yeah. Fantastic.
Great to have you guys back, or to meet you for the first time. And listeners, thank you so much for listening. I appreciate that more than you will ever know. See you again in 2 weeks. Until then, bye.